what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you, we praise you. This is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you, we praise you. We'll see you break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. For we cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side. Forever lifted high. With all creation cry, God, we praise you. We'll see you break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. For we cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side. Forever lifted high. With all creation cry, God, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Oh, we praise you.
All of your announcements this morning are in the bulletin. We do have some snacks and cookies for anybody if you want to get those while the music's playing.
like for microphones, but sometimes they're necessary. Good morning. Hey, that isn't bad for a first shot. Usually I have to call it out at least twice to get that many people to talk back there. Welcome to the warehouse this morning. We're glad you're here. Glad you joined us. We're glad we're getting back a little bit more to our normal routine. It's been a big problem, a big mess, trying to get everything going like it ought to be. But it's nice. I'm glad to see you here. I'm using today a text from the book of Matthew, chapter 21, beginning with verse 23 going through 32. And it's a verse, it's a little short story out of Matthew that really I had never paid attention to before. And I'll explain why a little later. Let me go ahead and see if I can get it pulled up on my old telephone here. I thought I had it, and I done put something else in there in front of it. So let's see if we can come up with it. It deals with the authority of Jesus. It's in Matthew chapter 21, beginning with verse 23. And when he entered the temple, the chief priests and the elders of the people came to him as he was teaching and said, "By what authority are you doing these things, and who gave you this authority?" And Jesus answered them and said, "I will ask you one question. And if you tell me the answer, then I also will tell you by what authority I do these things. The baptism of John, from where did it come? From heaven or from man?" And they discussed it among themselves, saying, "If we say from heaven, he will say to us, 'Why then did you not believe him?' But if we say from man, we are afraid of the crowd, for they all hold that John was a prophet." So they answered Jesus, "We do not know." And he said to them, "Neither will I tell you by what authority I do these things. And what do you think? A man had 2 sons, and he went to the first and said, 'Son, go and work in the vineyard today.' And he answered, 'I will not.' But afterward he changed his mind, and he went. And he went to the other son, and he said the same, and he answered, 'I go, sir,' but did not go. Which of the 2 did the will of his father?" They said, "The first." Jesus said to them, "Truly I say to you, the tax collectors and the prostitutes go into the kingdom of God before you. For John came to you in the way of righteousness, and you did not believe him. But the tax collectors and the prostitutes believed him. And even when you saw it, you did not afterward change your minds and believe him." Now, I said that this was a little short story. Of course, the Bible's made up of short stories. If you sit there and look at it, read it, that's all it is, a bunch of short stories. They all put together to make some sense. And this is one that I had missed in my looking around and studying and messing. I'm not one of these people that sit down every night and read 2 or 3 chapters out of the Bible. In fact, one reason I told them I taught Sunday school and I do this speaking is because it makes me study the Bible. Otherwise, I might not study it not near as much as I should anyhow. But this was verses that were recommended, and I looked at it. And one reason I have overlooked it, and I think some other people have too, this is in the last week of Jesus' ministry. He has just before this, he entered Jerusalem in a triumphant entry. This is what we call Palm Sunday. He has come into the temple and he ran out all the merchants and all the money changers and the people he called thieves in the temple. Then after this, we have the Last Supper, the trial, the crucifixion, and all that stuff. So this kind of, and also right after this, there are several more, Matthew includes several more parables that are much better known than the one I just got through reading. So we have a tendency maybe to overlook this. But I want us to look at it today, and I want us to think about it just a little bit. Now, Jesus is in the temple. That's a little bit unusual if you think about it. How many times did he teach in the temple, does it say in the Bible? Not very many, was it? He did most of his teaching where? Out in the middle of nowhere. But he's in the temple. He's doing his thing. Now, these chief priests and elders, the leaders of the temple, come to him and say, now, by whose authority are you doing? What are you doing in our temple without our permission? Now, I want to take just a second and think about the temple. That's capital T, capital temple. I'm not talking about a bunch of little letters in. There's a difference between the temple and the synagogues. I mean, the synagogues are scattered everywhere. Everybody went to a synagogue on the Sabbath, just like most of us goes to a church on Sunday. They're kind of like these little churches that are scattered all over the country. I don't know how many of y'all travel as much as I do, but everywhere I go, there's a little old church. You'll see a little old white church, usually white, maybe brick, sitting over here on about a half acre of land, may have a cemetery around it. Excuse me. Might have 12 members. May not have that many. But somebody's in that church every Sunday. And the synagogues are much like that. But now from Monday through Saturday, there's nobody much in those churches. You rarely see any cars parked around there. If you do, it's usually the guy that's cutting the grass, getting ready for the weekend. The temple, though, is different. The temple was busy 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It never shut down. It never, kind of reminds me of, y'all remember, some of y'all were around whenever we did a 24-hour worship service back here several years ago, and we patterned it after one that is still, they've been going on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for years now. That's kind of like the temple was, only it was even more so. There were hundreds of people there all the time. A Jew felt like his life was wasted if he didn't get to the temple at least once in his life. And they would travel hundreds and thousands of miles to make that journey. And the way they had to travel, then think about it. How did they travel? Foot, maybe a boat. And the merchants, I want to hit on them just a second, because they were actually important. Jesus had run them out, but those people were important. Because if you were a Greek that lived in Athens and a Jew, and you wanted to go back to the temple, and you wanted to make you made your sacrifices there, your offerings there, and you wanted to carry a lamb to the temple. Well, what did you do? Put that lamb under your arm and go from Athens, Greece to Jerusalem with that lamb? That's kind of aggravating, isn't it? So what would you do? You would sell your lamb back there in Greece, put the money in your pocket, and when you got to Jerusalem, you would buy a lamb. The problem was, your lamb was worth $10. When you got to Jerusalem, that guy sitting in there in front of the temple that was selling lambs wanted $30 for the same lamb. Now, I don't know where y'all from, but where I'm from, that's called gouging, which is another word for stealing. That's why Jesus was upset with them. That's why he ran them out. Now, the other side of that coin is that you can make a bet that they had the authority of the priest to set up there, didn't they? And probably what was happening, that priest was getting some of that money from them. This is why Jesus was upset with them. They were telling these folks one thing and living another. But when they asked Jesus, says, what authority do you have being in our temple? Jesus did something that he does all the time. He asked them a question. How many times in the Bible have you read where Jesus answered a question with a question? And the person who had asked the original question, when they answered Jesus' question, I'm getting a bunch of questions in here, but they had answered their own question. So Jesus asked him, said, well now, you tell me, whose authority did John the Baptist have? Was he under God's authority or was he under man's authority? Of course, they knew better than to answer God's, because then he would say, well, why didn't you believe him? If they said man's, then that would make everybody mad. So they refused to answer the question. So then Jesus gave them a parable. He said, man has two sons, and he asked his first son to go out and work in the vineyard, and the first son said, no, sir, I'm not going. Now, I know what would have happened, Junior, if my father had asked me or your father had asked you and we'd answered like that, don't we? We might not have went to the vineyard to work, but we would have sure regretted not going. But this father was nice. This father said, okay, that's fine. So he went to his second son and he asked him the same thing. And he said, yes, sir, I'm on my way. But the second son didn't go. Maybe the first son got thinking about it after his daddy walked away, and he said, you know, my father hadn't asked me a whole lot over my lifetime. Hadn't asked me a whole lot. But now one day I might actually own that vineyard, and I might need to know something about it. Maybe I might better go out there and work. And he might have got out there and found out he enjoyed it. I don't know. I used to enjoy work. I still don't mind it. I just can't do it as much as I used to. Which one of these sons did his father's command? And of course they answered the first son, the one that did the work. And Jesus told him, said, listen, these tax collectors, these prostitutes, these people that you don't want to deal with, that you don't want in your church, that you're not given the authority to come in here, these people that you're looking down on, they're the first son. They turned down God's invitation. But then after they thought about it a while, they changed their mind and they went ahead and followed God's invitation. Yet you, who were God's chosen, you told him what you would do, and you haven't done it. He said, I'm telling you that these sinners, these people you call sinners, they're going to be with my Father, while you are not. Now, I thought about that. We're going to get out early. Y'all like that, don't you? I thought about that. Maybe you might not like what the rest of what I fixed to say that. Because when I thought about that, I got to thinking, how many of us are the second son? How many of us have developed the attitude of the high priest? Now, I'm not talking about you, just you and me. I'm talking about the church as a whole. Not just this church, but every church. How many of us have decided that church is for people like us? Yeah, we're sinners. I love Rick's videos about inviting people to church. I don't know how many of y'all like them, but I really like them. I think they're good. And I think it's something we need to do. But how many of those videos are showing people who are inviting other people to church who are just like them? Co-workers, neighbors, the same people. How many of them are showing videos of them going, of these people going out on the street, getting with the homeless, getting with the street people, getting with the people who have never heard the Word of God, and inviting them to come into church and hear it. John the Baptist was the son of a priest. That means that John should have been a priest, because they should follow in their father's footsteps. He should have had all of the advantages that these priests that were challenging Jesus had. He could very easily have been one of them, but he chose not to. Instead, he chose to go into the wilderness and have people come to him that were totally different. The sinners, the prostitutes, the tax collectors. Martin Luther. Martin Luther was a Catholic monk. He was a Catholic priest, if you will. But he saw how the Catholic Church was treating the common people. And he said, this is not right. And so he broke off and he started the Protestant Revolution. That's where we come from. John the Baptist. No, excuse me, John Wesley. I knew I'd get that messed up. John Wesley was a priest in the Church of England. And yet the Church of England basically closed its doors to the common people. You had to be somebody to be a member of the Church of England. John Wesley said that's wrong, and he took his ministry where? To the streets. What we do here every Sunday is a wonderful thing. There's no doubt. We come here and we worship and we glory and we get with other people. But how many of us take it out of here and take it to the streets? A number of years ago, many years ago, I was into restoring antique tractors. We always had some kind of old piece of junk tractor in our shop at school that we were restoring. And we got one done, and we carried it to the Cordele Watermelon Festival. I don't know how many of y'all have ever been to the Cordele Watermelon Parade, but that son of a gun is held the Saturday before the 4th of July. You're talking hot. That's about as hot a place as I've ever been. And it's the longest parade that I have ever been in, and we used to make a pile of them, let me tell you. It ran from Interstate 75 all the way to the courthouse in downtown Cordele. Must be about 3 or 4 miles. Well, there was a group of us in the tractor club, had tractors up there that year, and Shirley and Lana and Michelle and Lana's husband, we all loaded up my old truck. We carried that tractor up there. And we went through the parade and set up around the courthouse and had us a little tractor show. And when it was all over, I told them, I said, I'm going to take the tractor back down to the ball field, load it, and I'll come back and pick y'all up, be back in about 30 minutes. I got about 3 blocks, and the tractor just quit. It was running, but it wouldn't pull. It stopped right in the middle of the street. I couldn't do anything, so I got off and started walking. The Saturday before the 4th of July in a brand new pair of cowboy boots. I'm 3 miles from my truck. I'm walking. This little red car pulls up and stops beside me, the window rolls down. This young black lady sticks her head out the window and says, "Sir, are you with that tractor back there?" I said, "Yes, ma'am, I am." She said, "Are you broke?" I said, "Yes, ma'am, I am." She said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to the ball field out there to get my truck." She said, "That's a long walk." I said, "It sure is." She said, "Get in, I'll carry you." So I climbed in her car with her. She has a child in the child seat, probably less than a year old. Let me tell you what, the air conditioning in that car sure felt good. And she had contemporary Christian music playing out of the radio. And as we're riding along, she looked at me and she said, "I passed you about a block back there. And God told me to turn around and go back and pick you up if you were in trouble." She carried me to my truck, and I went back and we got everything loaded up and got home. But I thank God that day for that young lady, I tell you. But since then I've wondered many times, if I had passed a red car sitting on the side of the road in downtown Cordele, and I saw a young black lady carrying a baby down the street, but God had told me to turn around and go pick her up and carry her somewhere. He might have. But would I have answered his call? Band, y'all come on up. We look at people, we know, we feel comfortable. I had a man tell me years ago, many years ago, in another church, he said, "I am comfortable in my church and in my religion." I thought then, and I've thought I don't know how many 100 times since then, said God made us comfortable in our religion. How often are we called to go outside of our comfort zone? Bring people the Word of God.
Please stand and join us as we close out the service.
We